They say people only realize the value of water when the well runs dry. The same truth plays out in love, and it is one of the most brutal lessons a man can ever learn. A woman may think she will never miss a man who gave her everything, but psychology has a way of proving her wrong. The man she once overlooked, the man she thought would always be there, becomes the very man she cannot stop thinking about once he chooses himself. And here is the reality that most men never fully grasp until they have lived through it. She does not start missing him when he is around. She starts missing him the moment he pulls away. When his silence echoes louder than his words, when his consistency fades into distance, and when her comfort turns into regret. This is not about revenge. It is not about playing games. It is about understanding the hidden psychology of how and why women miss the men they once took for granted, and what that means for a man who has finally decided to value himself. Silence has always carried a strange and underestimated power. Most people assume that words hold the weight, that endless talking, explaining, and clarifying somehow prove love or loyalty. But when a man finally learns the power of silence, that is when the real shift happens. A woman who once took his presence for granted does not notice the silence at first. She thinks he is just busy, caught up in work, or maybe giving her some space. But as the hours turn into days, that silence grows heavier. Suddenly, the man who once filled her phone with messages, who always checked in, who always explained himself, is no longer doing it. And that stillness speaks louder than any long speech he ever gave. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this when he wrote that silence is not the absence of speech, but the presence of self-control. Silence does something that words cannot. Words can be debated, dismissed, even twisted. But silence leaves no room for argument. It forces her to sit with her own thoughts, to question herself in ways she never did before. Why is not he calling? Did he stop caring? Did I push him too far? Those questions echo louder than his voice ever did, and that echo starts turning into regret. When someone is always available, their presence becomes background noise. She feels safe, believing he will always be there, no matter how she reacts. But silence removes that security. It makes her realize that his attention was never endless. It was a gift, and gifts once ignored are not guaranteed to return. This is where missing begins. Each notification she does not get, every call that never comes, every night he does not check in, reminds her of what she once overlooked. What once felt overwhelming, his constant presence, suddenly feels like a blessing she did not appreciate. The ancient Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus taught that a man should be indifferent to things that are beyond his control, including the opinions and reactions of others. When a man stops explaining himself, when he no longer seeks to justify his actions, he is practicing this indifference. And here is the irony. Silence also communicates strength. It is not weak to stop explaining. It is not weak to pull away. In fact, it shows a man values his energy more than convincing someone who never noticed it in the first place. That shift changes how she sees him. He is no longer the desperate man begging for attention. He becomes the man who chose himself, and that image stirs something deep inside her. The mind plays tricks in silence. She begins replaying old memories, old conversations, old moments she once brushed aside. She realizes his presence filled more space in her life than she ever admitted. The more she remembers, the more she longs. The silence that she once thought meant nothing now becomes unbearable. So when does a woman truly start missing a man she took for granted? Not when he is chasing, not when he is arguing, not when he is explaining. She starts missing him the day he chooses silence over pleading, because silence does not just mean absence. It means he is no longer willing to fight for a place she did not value. The Stoic philosopher Hierocles, who wrote extensively on ethics, observed that we should approach others as we would approach ourselves, with patience and understanding. But there comes a point where patience without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. When a man finally chooses silence, he is not being cruel. He is finally being honest with himself. Consistency is one of those quiet things in love that rarely gets the recognition it deserves. A man who shows up every single day, not with grand gestures, but with the little things, the good morning text, the late-night check-in, the steady reassurance, is giving something most women do not fully notice until it is gone. At first, she feels safe in that rhythm. It becomes her comfort zone. She knows he will be there, knows he will call, knows he will care, no matter how she reacts. But when something becomes too predictable, too constant, it slowly begins to feel ordinary. And that is where the danger starts. The truth is, consistency is never ordinary. It takes effort, it takes choice, it takes a man deciding every single day to keep showing up. But when that goes unappreciated, when it is brushed off like background noise, eventually he feels the weight of it. He realizes he is pouring into someone who does not see the gift he is giving. And that is when the shift happens. He starts to pull back. Not in a dramatic way, not in anger, but quietly, slowly. The daily rhythm begins to fade. At first, she barely notices. She tells herself he is just busy, or he will come back around. She shrugs off the silence, believing the routine will continue like it always has. But over time, the absence grows louder. The good morning message that once came like clockwork no longer lights up her screen. The phone calls that used to arrive without her having to ask are missing. The comfort of his constant presence turns into a hollow gap. And here is where the missing starts. She begins to realize that his consistency was not a routine. It was a form of love. It was the foundation of her emotional security, something she did not even realize she depended on until it was no longer there. Now, every small thing he once did feels extraordinary in hindsight. The little gestures she ignored now carry a weight she cannot escape. Consistency creates emotional dependency in ways we do not even notice. You do not plan for it. You do not demand it. But when someone shows up every day, your heart gets used to it, and when it disappears, nothing else feels the same. No new conversation, no new distraction, no other man can replace the steady energy he once gave. That is the brutal truth. What felt like routine to her was actually rare. What she dismissed as ordinary was a gift. And once that consistency turns into distance, regret begins. She realizes she never deserved his daily effort, but he gave it anyway. And losing it feels like losing a part of herself. That is when she starts to miss him. Not when he gave endlessly, but when the flow stopped and she was left thirsty for the water she once spilled without care. Respect is a tricky thing in relationships. When someone is always there, forgiving endlessly, loving without conditions, it is easy to stop respecting what they bring. A woman might look at a man's patience and confuse it with weakness. She might believe his willingness to stay means he has no strength to leave. That is the mistake many make. Because respect often does not grow in presence, it grows in absence. A man chooses to step back. When he stops proving himself, when he walks away quietly instead of begging, something changes in her perspective. Suddenly, the same love she dismissed looks rare. The same effort she overlooked now feels priceless. She begins to see him differently. Not as the man who was desperate to be chosen, but as the man who chose himself. That shift commands respect in a way words never could. The philosopher Epictetus wrote that no man is free who is not master of himself. When a man walks away, he is not running from her. He is mastering himself. He is choosing freedom over validation. And that choice is what makes her respect him more than she ever did when he was chasing. Absence has this unique way of stripping illusions. When he was always there, she did not have to think about what life would be like without him. She assumed his presence was permanent. But now, in the silence he left behind, she is forced to reflect. She recalls the countless times he showed up, the patience he carried, the sacrifices he made quietly without asking for credit. In his absence, those actions shine brighter than they ever did in his presence. And respect grows not because he demanded it, not because he shouted for it, but because he showed strength where she thought he had none. Choosing to walk away takes more courage than staying to beg. It is easy to keep chasing. It is harder to say, enough. That is when she realizes his love was not weakness. It was choice. And choices can be withdrawn. Here is the painful part. Respect often arrives too late. At first, she might not admit it. Pride will not let her. But deep down, she feels the weight of what she lost. She sees that not everyone carries the same loyalty. Not everyone forgives like he did. Not everyone stays when things get messy. And in that comparison, his worth grows. Absence also carries dignity. When he no longer reacts to her moods, when he no longer lowers his energy to argue, she sees his strength. The same man she thought she could control now refuses to play her games. A quiet dignity forces her to respect him more than she ever did when he was chasing. And this is the sting. She realizes she underestimated him. The man she thought was easy to dismiss becomes the man she cannot stop thinking about. Respect does not just grow in his absence. It haunts her because now she knows he was not weak for loving her. He was strong for walking away. Memories are tricky. They stay quiet when life feels full, when someone is present, when love feels guaranteed. But the moment a person walks away, those same memories come rushing back, uninvited, sharp, and heavy. For a woman who once took a man for granted, memories become her biggest reminder of everything she dismissed. At first, she does not notice them. She tries to keep busy. She tells herself she is fine. She may even distract herself with new people, new routines, or new conversations. But the human mind does not work like that. Memories sneak in when she least expects them. A song on the radio, a scent in the air, a place they once visited. Suddenly, she is back in that moment. And instead of brushing it off, she feels the sting because now those memories hold value she never gave them before. The little details start replaying. The way he laughed at her jokes, the way he noticed when she was quiet, even when she said nothing was wrong, the way he always showed up without her having to ask. These things she once overlooked now feel impossible to find again. What once blended into daily life now feels extraordinary in hindsight. The philosopher Seneca observed that the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. When a man leaves, he kindles something in her memory that cannot be extinguished. Here is the painful truth. Memories do not just recall the past, they relive the emotion. When she remembers him, she does not just think about what he did, she feels how he made her feel. The safety, the care, the comfort, and the emotional replay hurts more than his actual absence because she realizes she did not just lose a person, she lost the feeling that only he gave her. What makes memories dangerous is that they do not wait for permission. They come at night when she is alone. They strike in conversations with other people. They show up in quiet moments she thought she could escape. And each time, they remind her of her mistake. She had something rare. She had a man who cared deeply, and she threw it away, believing it would always be there. The more she tries to push the memories down, the stronger they become. Psychology tells us that suppressed thoughts come back even harder. So every time she tries to deny him, something in her life pulls him back into focus. And the more it happens, the more she realizes she misses him. Not because she wants to, but because her own mind will not let her forget. The worst part is that memories remind her of her failure. Every moment she recalls is not just about him. It is about how she undervalued him. Each flashback is both a comfort and a punishment. A comfort because it brings him close again, and a punishment because it reminds her she no longer has him. And that is when missing him turns into regret. A regret she carries every single time the past knocks on her heart. When she loses him, she often tells herself she can move on, that another man will step in and give her the same attention, the same care, maybe even more. But time away proves something that she never expected. Energy cannot be replaced. Another man may bring excitement. He may say the right words. He may try to play the role, but he cannot recreate the unique energy that made her feel what she once felt. Energy is not about surface gestures. It is about presence. The way he looked at her and knew something was wrong without her saying it. The way he remembered the small details about her that no one else noticed. The way he stayed consistent without being asked. That kind of energy does not come often. And once she realizes it, no new person feels enough. Other men may come with charm. They may be fun, distracting, and even affectionate for a time, but their attention often fades. Their words often feel empty. Their actions do not carry the same weight. She compares them even when she tries not to, and in every comparison, he stands taller in her memory. The truth is, energy is authentic. It cannot be faked. His care was real, his loyalty steady, his patience rare. That authenticity left an imprint. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. And a man's energy, his presence, his steadiness, dyes the soul of the woman who experiences it. Once that dye sets, it cannot be washed away. Psychology says we subconsciously measure new experiences against old ones. And no matter who comes along, they fall short of the standard he unknowingly set. She may deny it at first. She may tell herself the new man is better, more exciting, more adventurous. But deep inside, she feels the difference. She misses the calmness he carried, the stability he gave, the way he made her feel chosen without her having to question it. Those things are not easy to replace. And here is the hardest part. She realizes too late that his energy was not ordinary. It was not just what men do, it was who he was. Another man might copy his actions, but the authenticity behind them cannot be imitated. She feels it in her bones. This new energy does not feel the same. That is when regret starts cutting deeper, because she sees that she gave up something irreplaceable, chasing an illusion that someone else could fill the space he left. And no matter how many people she meets, no matter how many conversations she has, his energy lingers like a shadow. She carries it with her. Not because she wants to, but because it changed her. And that is the cruel truth. Energy leaves an imprint. His presence became a standard. And once you have experienced real, authentic energy, everything else feels like a weak copy. That is why she misses him. Not just the man, but the way he made her feel alive in a way no one else can replicate. In the beginning, his love felt like security. He was always there, always forgiving, always patient. She believed he would never leave. That illusion of permanence became her safety net. It gave her confidence, but it also made her careless. She tested him, ignored him, dismissed him, because deep inside she believed he would always stay. But security only lasts as long as it is respected. And when he finally pulls away, when his love no longer feels guaranteed, that comfort turns into panic. The man she thought would never leave is suddenly silent. The love she thought was permanent is fading, and the security she once leaned on becomes regret pressing into her chest. At first, she does not accept it. She convinces herself it is temporary, that he will come back like always. She waits for his consistency to return. But days turn into weeks, and the silence becomes undeniable. That is when regret sinks in. She replays the countless times she ignored his effort, the moments she brushed off his care, the times she dismissed his loyalty, and every memory stings because now she knows she cannot go back. The philosopher Zeno of Citium taught that we should not be upset by what we do not have, but rejoice in what we do. When she lost him, she finally understood what she had, and that understanding came too late. Regret is cruel because it is sharp and permanent. Unlike sadness, which fades with time, regret grows heavier the more you think about it. Every small reminder becomes a trigger, a missed call that will never come, a quiet night where she used to hear his voice. Each moment turns into proof of what she lost. What makes it worse is the realization that security was never promised. He chose her every single day. He showed up not because he had to, but because he wanted to, and she mistook that choice for permanence. Now that choice is gone, and the regret of taking it for granted crushes her. She begins to see the truth. The security she once had was not about his presence. It was about his decision to stay, and when he stopped deciding, everything collapsed. The regret is not just about missing him. It is about realizing she had something rare, something most people spend a lifetime searching for, and she treated it like it would last forever. The irony is painful. The very security that made her feel safe is what blinded her to his value. And now, in its absence, she feels lost. Regret turns ordinary memories into daggers, reminding her that she had love, patience, and loyalty, and she let it all slip away. That is when regret becomes unbearable, because she does not just miss him. She misses the safety she felt, the comfort she dismissed, the love she once believed would never leave. And knowing she cannot get it back makes the missing even harder to live with. Women do not stop missing the man they took for granted while he is chasing, explaining, or proving himself. They miss him when he chooses silence, when his consistency fades, when his respect demands absence, when memories start haunting, when no man can match his energy, and when their false sense of security turns into heavy regret. The philosopher Cleanthes, who succeeded Zeno as the head of the Stoic school, wrote that the fates guide the willing, but drag the unwilling. When a man finally stops chasing, he is not giving up. He is finally willing to be guided by his own self-respect. And that is what makes her miss him more than she ever expected. If you found value in this, make sure to subscribe, because here we do not just talk about relationships, we uncover the hidden psychology behind them. Hit the bell icon so you never miss the next insight. And remember, do not wait until it is gone to realize what you had.